So in this next hour, we are going to listen to a couple of keynotes and also a chat about the local deep tech ecosystem. We want to know if this ecosystem is bold enough, and we're going to do it by comparing the two visions from an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur. We will listen to Alejandro Martí from Mitiga Solutions and Jaime de Mora, CTO, Startups and Unicorns, EMEA, and Microsoft. We will start first with Alejandro Martí.
Hello.
¿Ya has visto la presentación todavía?
Oh, thank you.
Sí. Vale.
Let's start shaking things up a little bit. How many entrepreneurs in the room? All right, it's about 30%, fair enough. So if you're a local deep tech entrepreneur, I have bad news for you. You're not bold enough. We're not bold enough. And sure, that's my opinion, and you can disagree with me, but don't take my word for it. Let's look at the data. So Europe has the largest global share of deep tech scientific publications in the world. That is more than China. That is more than the United States. So as a matter of fact, we have 43% of all the deep tech publications in the world. Yet, for every euro, or for every dollar that we raise in venture capital in deep tech, the United States raises $3.5. I'm going to do a dramatic pause here for that number to sink in. And it gets worse. If you actually remove the UK, it's minus 40%. So if you look at continental Europe, the investment that we receive in deep tech is less than China. So remember, 43%, but then when it comes about deep tech, it's much less. But it gets worse than that. So if we look at country level, Spain is about the second, the third country in Europe producing scientific publications in deep tech. Yet is country number 7 when it comes about investment. That's behind countries like Switzerland, Sweden, Netherlands, and just above Finland. And the next one is the one that really breaks my heart. Out of all the money that it's being raised in deep tech, less than 1% arrives to Catalonia. Those are the facts. This is an average from the last 5 years. Even Convergencia did better with their 3%. So why is that? Why do we think is that? Remember, 43% are European level of all the deep tech scientific publications, but then when it comes about investment, we're just not quite there. So this is one question that I've been asking myself for the past few months. And I've been fortunate enough to work about 10 years in the US, working in government and research, about 4 years in the UK, doing the same thing, government and research, and in the last 8, 9 years, working in research and as an entrepreneur here in Catalonia and in Spain. And the first conclusion that I got is that boldness is as a function of geography. What I mean by that? It means that it's a cultural thing. So I always put the analogy as when you go through the customs with your passport, if you have an American passport and you go through the gentleman or the lady that is going to stamp your passport, it puts bold, and then you can go. If you go with your Catalan passport, they stamp, and a word comes out that says seny. It's a word that I love. We have a lot of seny. We're very prudent, we're very conservative, you know, which is something that is great. But why cannot we have seny and bold at the same time? And this is the question that I keep asking myself, and in a way, the data is kind of supporting that. No? So I will just work you a little bit of a journey for myself when I lost my seny by itself and when it became seny and boldness. And it all started with this gentleman here, Dr. Francisco Artigas. Born and raised in Chile, worked his way out Chile to the United States with a Fulbright scholarship. Did his PhD at Ohio State University, and he managed to be the director of one of the most prestigious research centers in the US. I was very fortunate that when I was finishing college in the US, he handpicked me one day, and he just asked me what my vision was. And of course, I went and I gave this big spiel about how I wanted to change the world, and I had all these ideas. And you know, calm as he is, he put his arm around my neck, he smiled, and he didn't say anything. The next day, I was very fortunate to work for him in his lab. So I was the first European person working in his lab for the US government at a research level. And it only took 2 months until Francisco told me something that it really changed my mind, and it changed my life, I believe. in retrospective analysis. And I'm going to read it, and I quote, "We're only limited by our imagination. Your vision will be constrained until you decide what you deserve and staple it in your eyeballs." This was a very visual sentence to me. So I need to staple it in my eyeballs, and I need to look at it every day, and I need to understand what I want to become. And then he continued and said, "The reason why you doubt yourself so much is that you have never seen yourself in action." And I still have goosebumps when I read this sentence, because it really sinks on me. After that day, and this was 2 months into the job, I was 20 years old, I was an expat in the US, I was hungry. For me, Francisco was every single thing that boldness means. So that day, my Seny met Francisco's boldness. And since then, bold we became together. So for 10 years, we did amazing projects together. So right now, we talk a lot about remote sensing, right? And hyperspectral imagery, and so forth. The picture on the bottom left, on the bottom right, this is 2002. And we invented something that it was called balloon photography. And it was only a helium balloon, massive balloon. We strapped a Canon EOS D20 with 3.5 megapixels with a little cord that it served as an automatic shooter. And we keep taking pictures of the meadowlands to evaluate if the fragmented palms were growing and contracting, and trying to evaluate if that was a measure because of sea level rise. We talk a lot, and I'm talking tonight in public television about the wrapping up of COP28, where finally, you know, the UN has pushed forward the phase out, well, a document that somehow says that we're going to be phasing out about fossil fuels. But in the last year, we've been talking about decarbonization, carbon credits, so forth. 2003, the picture on top of that. First project in the United States about carbon sequestration, sponsored by the National Science Foundation. All what it was is an anemometer that it was connected to a Verizon cell phone with a little data SIM card that I had to go every week to actually download because it was very little memory, strapped to a battery that it was strapped to a first solar panel, and it was the first time, you know, that we did carbon sequestration. So my point here is that with very little, and with the vision that Francisco had, we were able to accomplish a lot. And I'm conveniently using these two examples. Obviously, this was the US government. It has a lot of resources. And every now and then, we get to place with very nice tools, no? and very nice gadgets. But the story looks better when I say that we did it with very little resources. But why I'm telling you all this? And the reason why I'm telling you this is because this drive that I learned from Francisco was the same drive that in 2018 drove me to create Mitiga, spin-off of the National Supercomputing Center, one of the first ones. And at the same time, made me be bold and thinking, okay, I'm comfortable at the BSc, I'm very happy what I'm doing there, but, you know, how about the next step? What else can I do? Can I take this science and bring it into industry and really have an impact? And of course, I had my PhD, I had my international experience, we were backed up by the BSc, so I felt that we were unbeatable, no? And then it hit me. I wasn't in the US anymore. And I didn't know the international VC ecosystem or the entrepreneur ecosystem. So what did I do? When I got out of the BSc, I turned into the local ecosystem. And it hit me hard. I had to hear things like the following. And I'm just selecting these 3 because they are my favorite, but I have another, probably 15 that I could share with you. So someone told me very soon after I spin out that all spin-offs should have the same valuations. And the reasoning behind is like, you're just scientists. You only know the science of things. You don't have a product. You don't have a market to target. You just have ideas. Like, wait, you just have the science? You just have ideas? Is that the quintessential base of entrepreneurship? Is that innovation? What do you mean, just have ideas? Okay, well, then I moved forward. I just didn't listen. And then I went to the next person in line, which ultimately, he became an investor, and he said, we love you. We love what you're doing. We love the way you're doing it. We love your team. We love your technology. We just don't love your valuation. We're going to give you half of it. Just like that. You know, it's like if I'm an Argentinian peso, that all of a sudden, from one day to another, I'm half the value. No? And we are the experts. That's saying the investor. No? And I was, wait, am I the one with the PhD? And I'm the one that I did the technology, but yet you are the expert. All right. And the third one is another one that I just love. The third one, they ultimately became our lead investor for the seed round. And that was, the conversation was 11 o'clock at night. I still remember. I was at the offices of RCD, the lawyers, having the conversation about the last term sheet. And they just pulled Spanish move. The last minute before we need to send the term sheet is like, oh yeah, well, about salaries. You founders cannot have these salaries. You know, you already have equity, and at the end of the day, you're just scientists. You know nothing about the business. It's like, all right. Like that, after many years, after my time in the US, I had fear again. I doubt myself, and I can say that today, no? But I didn't have it because of myself. I had it because all the people, my co-founder, the people who trusted us, that now they were on our side. They were in the journey of Mitiga, and if I wasn't raising this money, I was leaving them on the street. So I generally felt fear, and I started questioning myself, no? And in a way, I went a little bit into my mind palace, and I asked myself, what did Francisco will tell me? And it took me 30 seconds. You know, on the second case, I just give him a call, and it's like, listen, I really appreciate, you know, all the, you know, support and so forth, but I think we're going to stick with our valuation. You know, we really believe that this is what we valued, and listen, if it's not for you, that's totally fine. Next morning, I received a term sheet signed with them with the valuation that we wanted. Same thing with the other case. 11 o'clock at night, in that case, I hang up the phone. And I said, don't call me again if you're actually not going to accept, you know, the salary of my co-founder and myself. Who better than ourselves know what we value at? And this is not about being cocky or about getting our way. This is about trusting that we have a value and that that value needs to be recognized. And we are the ones that they know that value better than anyone else. So, and this is not, again, I'm not saying that you always need to get your way, no? But what I'm trying to say here is if you're honest with yourself and you know what you're doing, you should stick to your gut, no matter what people are telling you, whether that is investors, the industry, you know, you just staple it into your eyes, what Francisco was saying. So, coming back to the question that or the statement that I make at the beginning, so is it just that entrepreneurs need to be more bold? Or part of the fault is the ecosystem as well. Right? So maybe just not us, that we just need to be more bold and think about moonshots. Maybe the ecosystem, the local ecosystem, needs to enable that as well. If not, it's really, really difficult. For that, we had more data, no? So my question is like, is it me that I'm seeing this, or you know, like other people see the same thing? So we created something that it's called the DeepTech Jungle. The reason why we call it jungle, very simple. You know, I remember my times with Francisco, machete in hand, kind of like going through the march and putting all this equipment into the middle of nowhere. And obviously, this is about deep tech. So this community basically is about giving back, first of all. So Mitiga is now 5 years old. We have some lessons learned. I'm not sure how much value we can bring back to the community, but probably we can share a lot of the things what not to do, and some shortcuts that you could take. But it wasn't just only about us. It's about that lack of that network, that community, to bring international investors that are going to help us think in a different way, to connect the technology transfer offices so they have access to those investors, to bring industry. And so that's what we did. We actually partnered with the Tech City of Barcelona, we partnered with Axio, we partnered with Barcelona Activa, and we start out of nothing trying to put a couple of events that actually were going to do exactly that, trying to connect these people for them to have conversations. And the first event was quite a success. I remember talking to Mikel and preparing this like 48 hours before the event, and we just like tried to reach out to most of the technology transfer offices and say, hey, we're going to bring some international investors. We did a survey. Can we sit down and discuss why international investments are not arriving here and why you guys don't know these international investors, no? So it was quite a success. There was a lot of technology transfer offices that came. There were some good spin-offs as well. And we had 3 international investors that they share their reasonings why they didn't even know about the BSC, about IRTA, about ICFO, about the UPC, or the spin-offs that are coming out from there. And if they knew about them, why they didn't invest in them. And we create a set of questions. And at the end, the answer was like, just turn to the site, and you have the answer. And we have the TTOs, the spin-offs, and the international investors talking together. I'm happy to say that just out of that event, 2 investments came out. So congrats to you to setting it up. But the second investment just was formalized as well. So this told us that, you know, it's not that just we're not bold enough. That's just not the only reason. There was a lack of connecting people, no? The second part is, okay, we tried that with three investors, right? How about if we try 10? And trust me, to put a panel with 10 people is not an easy thing. And manage it is even less easy. But what we did here is bring in 3 segments of investment. So from left to right, we bring seed investors, early stage investors, and growth investors. And for each of those buckets, we brought a local, a national, an international investor. And before that, we did a survey where we asked them exactly the same questions. And what we wanted to see is, are all seed stage investors, regardless where they're from, thinking the same? Are they expecting the same from the entrepreneurs? Are the entrepreneurs from here aware what the local, international, or national investor are looking for? So imagine each of those boxes as a dark room. And that room, one of investors is sitting inside. So you have your seed, local, you have your early stage, national, whatever. So you open the door, and you start asking questions to that person. And for every time that that person gives you an answer that the local entrepreneurial ecosystem wasn't expecting, we turn a light bulb. As you can see, the brighter the room got, the bigger the gap was between what the local ecosystem thinks that the investor wants. And it's easy to see the pattern, no? The later the stage is, and the more international the investor are, the less we are aware of what they're looking for. And something that is very interesting, within the same stage, they're not looking the same. They're not looking the same. An investor in New York, an investor in London, an investor in Madrid are not really looking at the same thing. And that's the truth. And somehow that screen went away. Another thing that really shocked me is one of the questions that we asked them. I made the question to the 10 investors, and I asked them, if you depend only from one investment, just one investment that needs to save the day for your entire vehicle, your entire fund, it needs to give you all the returns, where would you go and try to find that unicorn? I started with international investors. No surprise, nobody said Spain. I went to the national investors. Big surprise, nobody said Spain. And then it was only the local investors that said here. There is a lot of conclusions that we can get from here, and I don't think any of them are good. Just look at the data. You know? And this is not just 10 investors. Then we did this with more people because the survey on the DeepTech Jungle website is open. No? So this is already telling you that if we have one chance, we're not trusting you. We're going to go away. You know? We're going to go to UK. We're going to go to Germany. You know? So some of the conclusions that we got from this event, and I will try to wrap up, is that I feel that a local environment is still prioritizing short-term results, rather than really looking at those moonshots. We all want moonshots. The investors, the entrepreneurs, the ecosystem, but are we all really betting on moonshots? Are we really all asking, be bold, be ambitious, take the risk? Or are we asking, meet this metric, make sure you meet the quota? Well, there is a trade-off. You cannot have both. The other thing that I think it's the one thing that I have a big fuss with the local ecosystem is this very fragmented. But not only is very fragmented, it's serving their own interests. The technology transfer offices are looking into their own agenda, and they have enough work to actually, you know, like not even look up, or not look so much outside of that. The investors don't talk about it, you know. They're about making their returns and they're making their LPs happy. The industry is still not very connected with the startup ecosystem. So unless we create that network that is actually helping to connect, to learn, and to actually allow entrepreneurs to be bold, we're still going to be very, very far off. And just to finish, and this is what normally investors at a local level are asking entrepreneurs. And for those ones that are here, I mean, let me know if I'm mistaken. But they ask you, you need to have business acumen. You need to have excellent tech, amazing team, experience in the sector. So they basically want us to be superhuman, right? So since asking is free, why we don't ask them to ask us to be more ambitious? To be more bold. So trade out a little percentage on the other 4 and ask me to be more ambitious. Don't ask me to have that excellent tech. You don't understand the tech at the end of the day. Like, I got you at hello. That's clear. You know, you're not investing in the tech, you're investing in the person. Okay, if that's true, invest in the ambition of that person. No? That's what's happening in the US. Those ones that, for you that have lived in the US, that you have relationships with investors in the US, or you have any knowledge about the US, you would know that in the US, if you have ambition, if you have confidence in yourself, you're creating something that is called FOMO, fear of missing out. And that is when investors invest. Because their index of investment is regulated by 2 things, fear and greed. Fear of missing out for the next unicorn, and greed to make their multiples. So there, when you open your shirt and you show all the scarves that you have when you have failed, they love you for it, because they know you're one step closer to succeed. Here, if you have a scarf, you're going to close your shirt, and it's like, hey, I'm not going to show it because they're going to tell me that I'm a failure, right? It's as simple as that. At least it has been as simple as that for us. And I'm maybe trying to oversimplify it, but why not? So my last slide is basically talking about, if you guys want to take something out of this talk, is about try to find your own Francisco. Try to find that thing that is different in your day-to-day, that motivates you, that is going to make you go as far as you can, and that replicate it in every single thing of your ecosystem. For yourself, for your team, being people from different places, different geographies, different cultures, different sexual orientations, different religions, and learn about that there are many ways of seeing things, and it's the combination of all of them that will allow you to be bold at the end of the day. So let's make sure that we make that 43% count, and let's be bold. Thank you. So now the second part of the talk is the most interesting part, which, okay, this is a story about an entrepreneur, no? So we have, in a way, a blank sheet, and we can design what we want to be, and we can even fail or succeed, no? But I feel that it's much more difficult to create it within an organization, within a very established organization. It's a sailboat that it has a direction, it has a speed, and somehow you need to try to change the direction. So I leave you with Jaime Mora.
Thank you, Alejandro, for the kind words and for the invite. And good afternoon, everyone. Ooh, let me see. OK, here we go. So my name is Jaime. Basically, I am the CTO at EMEA level for startups and unicorns. And what does that mean? That means that basically I lead a team that works with the most innovative and cutting-edge companies across 128 countries. I feel fortunate about what I do, and I feel I have good visibility of what's going on in different startup ecosystems. But I think I've been more time on your end than here, on the corporate side. I've been an entrepreneur, not as successful maybe as Alejandro. I actually have been a very bad entrepreneur, and I failed miserably. But that's part of the learning. And actually I have a very, I would say, a non-standard trajectory. I actually started as a journalist many years ago. That's more than 18 years ago. But then I pivoted, and I started creating my own companies. I actually created 2 different companies. And again, I didn't succeed. I raised some money, but I didn't have enough experience, and probably the ecosystem was not mature enough to support me with the right tools and guidance in order to take that company to the next level. Where I was fortunate enough to actually succeed was actually in different startups. Then I said, OK, I'm not good enough as an entrepreneur. Let's see if I can actually join different startups and grow with them. And I have been fairly successful scaling different companies, mostly in the US, actually I have helped raise more than 300 million euros in venture funding. And I think I've seen both ends of actually the scale-up journey. Of course, the beautiful part of seeing something very small, joining a team with 5 people and getting it up to 200-300, raising money and new rounds, all the excitement, but also the hard parts. It's hard to scale. It's hard to build companies. It's hard, especially, to go through that growth phase and make them successful internationally. It's actually a very big challenge. But while I was actually again, and I've been on different scale-ups, mostly living in the US, while I was there, one of the things that I realized is that most of our successes came actually from partnering with large corporations, whether it was a hyperscaler that helped us as a distribution channel and develop different technology partnerships, or with other corporates that also allowed us, again, to create very strategic projects of high impact. So then I was thinking about, hey, how can we make this corporation help us better? And that was some of the things that I thought about for a very long time. I actually even created my own consulting firm in the US to help companies from Spain and Europe to actually move to the US and scale successfully. But again and again, what I saw is that scaling a company is extremely hard. It's extremely hard, and again, the thing sometimes is just like rolling a dice. I think the startup ecosystem in Spain, fortunately, has actually become more mature. There's more support from the government. There are more incubators, accelerators, more successful entrepreneurs, which is something critical as well. People that have done that journey before, that is critical. But again, what is the role that big companies play as well? And that is something that I kept thinking about for a very long time. Because also, when we talk about the scaling a company, things are just getting harder. Again, if it was hard before, I think that right now it's even harder. We know companies are going under a lot of financial pressure. They need to develop and ship products faster. And actually, their cost of sales needs to be reduced dramatically. We also see that the trends on the market are actually changing. Companies don't want to have 1,000 different vendors. They just want to centralize and rationalize the number of companies they invest in and they buy from. So we're seeing, again, a lot of different dynamics changing. And again, I asked the question, what is the role then that companies should play here? And I would say for startups, corporates are as important that as startups should be as important as for corporates. So corporates can actually provide the reputation, the knowledge, the talent, the customer base, the resources. But startups at the same time, they can provide the innovation, the agility, the lack of bureaucracy, the access to new ideas and new business models. So it should be, again, a two-way relationship, not only one-way relationship. And that's when actually Microsoft, back in the day, Microsoft's European president, she approached me and she actually presented me with the challenge of building this entire organization called Digital Natives, which is companies born in the cloud, in order to build that from scratch at Microsoft. So Microsoft historically had not been focusing or putting that much focus and emphasis on startups mostly. And it took me some time to actually make the decision. I thought, how hard can it be or how feasible can it be to actually move this entire corporation and really make it succeed in this market? Of course, everyone has an opinion. A lot of friends, a lot of people from the ecosystem, they said, that's not going to work. It's going to be pretty hard. You're never going to be able to convince people. And the same, and I didn't find just the pushback internally, with my friends or my network, but also internally when I joined Microsoft. A lot of people said, we've tried this before, it's not going to work. Good luck, basically. Hey, that was fair. But if we have learned something from Microsoft's perspective, is that it has constantly reinvented itself. Its own mission is, again, to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And that also means supporting, again, if we want every person and every organization, that means as well startups. And I truly believe that Microsoft had a key responsibility towards supporting startups, startup ecosystems, and overall innovation and technology. And again, a lot of people were very skeptical. But if we look at Microsoft history, one thing it has proven is that whenever it puts focus on something, it actually succeeds. A lot of people thought that, okay, Microsoft is moving actually to become a cloud vendor. How risky is that? There are already established players in the market. They might not succeed. And right now, it's one of the leading players in the industry. The same happened when it actually launched, again, a new set of hardware devices, in this case, the Surface line of devices. And right now, it's a multi-billion-dollar business. And all the analysts, a lot of people actually thought they're not going to succeed. The same with gaming. Back in 2001, 2002, a lot of people said, what is Microsoft doing in gaming? How can they actually thrive and succeed? And slowly, they have become a top 2 player globally and a multi-billion-dollar business as well. And the latest trend was actually their investment in AI. This is what a lot of people saw. Oh, actually, Microsoft has invested in AI. Actually, this tweet from Sam Altman was became viral very quickly, and actually that's the point in which a lot of startups started looking at Microsoft through a different lens. And they started actually calling and saying, hey, how can we actually collaborate? How can we work together? But the reality is that Microsoft had been working on AI for more than 30 years. It employs 20,000 AI researchers. It has more than 20,000 AI-related patents in the last 40 years. But again, what people see is just the tip of the iceberg. And that is fair. But that means as well that there's a challenge, a responsibility, at least from my side, to change the industry's perception. And that's also another challenge. So I'll tell you a little bit about my journey itself. And I would say it's been a very, very rewarding journey. Of course, again, a lot of companies right now see us through a different lens, given what happened in the last months with Microsoft and OpenAI, and it has put Microsoft more on the spotlight towards startups. But again, we have been doing so much more in the last 18 months. First, we have launched again, one of the challenges as well, before I go into the specifics, is how can we actually support startups at scale? We're talking about hundreds of thousands of startups. It's true that in the US they had been doing more things before, but in Europe, the level of support had been very, very low. So how can we create programmatic approaches in order to support every single entrepreneur out there? We have leveraged AI, of course. We have leveraged as well our own technology in order to do that. So we have done many different things. One is we have created what we call Founders Hub, which is a digital program to support every entrepreneur out there. Not only will we give them credits, which some people might argue that they're becoming commoditized, but it's more about the know-how. How can we match an entrepreneur like Alejandro, for example, with their potential or his potential buyers? How can we match an entrepreneur like Alejandro, for example, with industry experts and people that in COP, for example, introduce him to other leaders and relevant leaders and put him on the spotlight as well? How can we provide as well companies like Mitiga with the tools in order to develop faster and, most importantly, cheaper, especially given right now the current tensions, the current economic environment. And right now we have more than 12,000 companies, and this launched a year and a half, more than 12,000 companies partnering with us. We have also launched what is called Microsoft Reactor, which is a set of accelerators all over the world that provide, again, not only the physical space to allow for that serendipity that sometimes is needed and required for entrepreneurs to thrive and ideas to be created, but also, again, for people to connect with former entrepreneurs, corporates, governments, and create that space for people to co-innovate. But then also, again, it has created different AI programs in order to provide companies, especially right now, if you look at every company under the sun creating AI, the biggest challenge or the biggest bottleneck right now is pricing and its infrastructure. We know it's not easy. We know it's a very scarce resource. But still, we're heavily investing in AI. We have created as well what we call the AI Foundry in order to provide, again, entrepreneurs with not only, again, the tools, not only the infrastructure and the models, but also the know-how from those 20,000+ AI researchers that we do have in-house. We also have launched, by the way, it was working before, but it has been more, we have been investing more resources on our own fund. It's called M12. Right now it's doing dozens of operations or investments per year, and some of them actually even in Spain. And it's something that didn't happen probably 3-4 years ago. So again, the thing is, if I look back, the progress has been tremendous. Tremendous. But also I want to share with you not only what we're doing at Microsoft, but at least what have been my learnings. Because it's true for me, I've been here for 18 months, and it's been a year and a half of huge learnings. It has not been easy, to be honest. There's so much external selling as there is internal selling, and convincing people, and trying to find allies and rally people around you. Because again, a lot of people didn't believe in what we were doing before. The first one is, and this is something that actually my former boss told me, you need to break glass. That means we brought you to change things, to change the mentality, to do things absolutely different. If you keep doing things the same way that we're doing it, then we're going to fail. So the first thing is, again, as Alejandro was saying as well, be bold, take risks. Not everyone's going to like you. That's okay. Not everyone's going to think that what you're doing is correct. That's fine as well. But you need to be convinced of what you're doing and go for it. The second one is you need to find those latent believers in your cause, those that really believe in what you're doing. Imagine this big corporation, 300,000 people that have been doing, not the same every day, of course, but that are not used to just to working with startups. I'm sure there are plenty of people that can be excited about this. So you need to find the right people and build a community around it. And then start making noise. That is absolutely crucial. You're never going to accomplish anything by yourself. So you need to build a community and then make noise. Then also, and this is a metaphor that I took from one of my mentors, Miguel Arias, that actually we see this big company as an elephant, and the elephant is not used to dancing with the gazelles. Again, different time frames, a lot of bureaucracy. I've had entrepreneurs telling me it's hard to work with companies such as yours, and that's fair. That's fair, but that's also part of the learning. How to actually make companies so big work at the pace of of small companies, meet their time frames, meet their expectation. There's a lot of education going, so much education. It's hard, but again, it really pays off, and you need to do, as I was saying before, a lot of internal selling. Actually, this was a slide that I used in one of our internal trainings to all the European leadership team back in the day, because people don't really understand how startups think and how they operate, and they're absolutely different from anything else. Then, as any new initiative, there's always the risk of it just being defunded and at some point being deprioritized. It's crucial to measure the impact, and it needs to be tangible, whether it's number of startups engaged, whether it's potential revenue, whether it's new companies that now partner somehow with Microsoft, whether it's new projects developed together, but you need to be able to internally communicate the impact. If you just say how cool you are and how important this is without really measuring, nobody's going to buy your story. So really, really, it's crucial, again, to find those key metrics that also are somehow aligned to the company's strategy. If they're absolutely on the side, no. Just think about all the innovation projects that have been killed in the last years at big corporates. That is the last thing that we want. So you need to continuously show the impact and make the leaders understand what that impact is and what it means for the company. And last but not least, you need to hire people that can actually drive that change. That means, in my case, hire more entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs, hire entrepreneurs and find more intrapreneurs. Those that really want to do something different. Those that want to challenge the status quo. Those that really can change the mentality internally, because it takes time and it's hard. And if you only rely on internal resources, it's going to be an uphill battle. So you better surround yourself from people that share the same passion and people that, to an extent, have gone through the same journey. So I just want to wrap up saying that so far, again, I feel that we've made tremendous progress. I feel that the best part is still yet to come, but it's all about the journey. It's all about the journey. What I can say is that so far it's been great, it's been fun, and the best of all is that it's working. So now I'm going to have a fireside chat with Alejandro. We're going to answer also some questions eventually if you have. But thank you very much. And I would just also like to finish with a quote from our CEO, Satya Nadella, that actually talks about how even for large companies, our industry does not respect tradition, which sometimes has a big weight, but actually what it respects is innovation. And that innovation without startups is just not feasible. So thank you very much.
Muy bien, crack.
All
right, so we're going to compare some notes. Obviously, you have Jaime here that has done it. Actually, you have done it from all places, no? From inside, from outside, from within. And I think I would like to start with something that you said that I didn't know, that you actually tried to start a couple of companies before you actually went to Khartoum. And I want us to maybe share some notes and demystify the concept of entrepreneur. No? So if you look at our website or our social media, we look like, again, superhumans, right? We have all these images about how successful things are, when we have awards, when we go to places, and so forth. So it gives the impression that somehow we are this kind of people that we wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, we do power yoga, we have some green smoothie, and before you actually woke up, hit the snooze in your alarm clock and have your own coffee, we already have, I don't know, 10, 15 emails. I don't know about you, I'm not like that. And it's very lonely. I find that, the road for entrepreneur, especially at the beginning, is a lot of nights, trying to reconcile ideas, to solve problems, and that the social media, it's not really representing what, being an intra or entrepreneur is. So how it has been for you?
In terms of loneliness?
In terms of loneliness, yes. In terms of like,
It's definitely, again, both being an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur can be lonely. I think, again, I think your biggest companion is actually your passion. Mm-hmm. It's believing in a mission and just doing whatever it takes to get there. So, because as you mentioned as well in your talk, I think you get so many no's and so many people challenge you and tell you you're crazy, what are you doing? But if you don't listen to them, if you just remain focused on trying just to accomplish your mission, that's all it takes. I can talk about hours about, again, all the people that said no at Microsoft, and now they're actually calling me, hey, I want to actually join your team, your organization. That happens, right? How is the saying? Like, first they call you crazy, then they admire you, and then they enjoy you, something like that. So I think motivation needs to come from within. And if you can find key people that can also boost you a little bit, that's better. But motivation needs to be intrinsic.
And how is it for you? Because for me, a lot of times when you are with your team, you need to be strong. You need to show that you have this shield, that you have it all figured out, and most of the times you don't. You're making up things as you go. And so how you do it with your team? What level of openness do you have about the fears that you have, the things that you don't know?
I think that comes down very to the individual, regardless of that person being an entrepreneur, being a regular manager in a company, or being inside a large corporate. I like to be extremely transparent. Sometimes it doesn't pay off, sometimes, but I'd rather be extremely transparent. But also you need to be transparent with people that have certain level of maturity. You cannot share a lot of news. Imagine you're an entrepreneur and you tell your team, hey, we have just 3 months of runway. That night, they're not gonna sleep very well. Right. So you need to manage those expectations. But at least from my side, as much as possible, I try to be an open book and just share everything that I have and I know.
Yeah, no, fair enough, and I feel the same way. It's at Stanford, there is this saying for every undergrad that starts at Stanford, they give them a handbook, a student handbook, no? And one of the first things that the student handbook says that much students at Stanford, when they finish their degrees, they rather create their own job than find a job, no? So when you're an entrepreneur, this is something that, in a way, you have that luxury. You might fail or not, but you have a blank piece of paper. You just drive whatever you're gonna do, and you try it, no? But when you're an entrepreneur, and you were mentioning, what was the biggest challenge that you had when you said, I'm going to rock the boat, and that boat is called Microsoft? Because people at Microsoft don't wear sneakers and jeans, at least the ones that I talk. So how do you manage?
No, definitely not. But it's changing. It's changing, and I would say also it's not the same Europe than the US. But I would say the biggest challenge has been getting internal buy-in and alignment around the vision that, yes, serving this segment, supporting startups is critical, not just for ourselves, but again, for the whole tech ecosystem. And we should really invest in it. A lot of people and you hear a lot of things from a lot of people that have dealt in the past with startups, like, no, but they're cheap, they don't provide enough returns. Is it worth our time? And if you think about it, when you deal with large companies and those relationships, again, at the end of the day, they pay the bills. It's hard, again, to provide support to hundreds of thousands of startups. It's very challenging. So at the end of the day, there's also an opportunity cost when you decide to serve startups. So at least aligning leadership under the vision that serving that market is critical for the success of Microsoft has been probably the biggest challenge, but I would say also the most rewarding moment, because right now there's full consensus that that's the direction to take. And I would say definitely also OpenAI and everything that has happened around the AI space in the last year has helped to establish that vision.
How long did it take you?
Again, it's like always, right? First, you convince one person, two, then you start building a community, you create that capillarity. Takes I would say normally it can take years. I mean, I'm on my plan, and I had like a 3-year plan. I thought at least 2 years. I thought it was still, my organization was still going to be an incubation organization for at least 1-2 years. Now it's not. Actually, it's one of the highest performing and most important organizations globally, which I'm proud of. But again, it has really been accelerated as well by everything that has happened around in the AI space. That has really made people think, okay, now we really need to partner with companies like OpenAI in order to ensure or guarantee the sustainability
of the business, right?
Of the business, long term.
Yeah, so now I guess you can appreciate the views from the top of the mountain, but climbing the mountain has been very difficult, no? And we are in a business of no's, no? So we're machines of being told no. From entrepreneur point of view, from intrapreneur. So where did you get more no's? In your or intrapreneur life?
I'm not sure I've quantified those, but I would say both. I would say definitely both. And I would say there's one thing that I really encountered when I was at Cardo, again, a company that I joined when we were like 8 people or 5 people, and left when we were like 200 something. And that journey itself was extremely exciting. And it's so important, the momentum, it's critical. There we had so much momentum and everyone said yes, no matter what. Right. We want to buy your product, but do you know what we do? But we want to buy it. Matter. What you said as well before, a little bit the FOMO, that really plays an important role. But I would say previous to that, and then both at Microsoft, yes, there have been many no's. But again, it's okay. It's about really not getting discouraging about the no's, and it's just saying, okay, maybe the thing is they don't know what they don't know. So let's just go to someone else that might buy into my idea, into my vision.
Yeah, but it's not easy, to get that many no's, and I did quantify them.
How do you do it?
So, for example, for our Series A, I interview a total of 174 investors, and we got 164 no's. So it's great because you put it the other way around. We had 10 term sheets, and in the current macroeconomics conditions, and that was beginning of this year, it was great. But to get these 10 yeses, you need to go through 164 no's, no? And at some point, it's very much different when you get a no when you really need them to say yes than when you are okay to say no, right? So within an organization, I guess you have a little bit of a safety net, no? That, like if someone is, but maybe not so much.
Just think that last year, it was very hard for all the tech, especially for the big tech. It was a very hard year globally. So when you're building a new business, you always think, hey, is the entire corporation going to still be funding this initiative? And you always wonder what might happen. So that's why it's relevant to, or critical to what I mentioned before, just like show tangible business. Don't just say you're doing cool stuff, show the cool stuff that you're doing, and what does that mean? What is the ultimate impact that that's creating? Because again, you might get, again, as I said, defunded, and someone might say, oh, this is not that relevant. Okay. Let's maybe focus on this in 3 years from now.
Yeah, and that has happened before, right?
Yes.
So, and keep thinking your questions, because in a question or two, we're going to turn it to you guys. And you don't get this guy to be here that often. And you're seeing the next future unicorn intrapreneur, you know? So this is something that you need to take advantage today.
You're very kind.
No, but you are. So let's talk a little bit about the Microsoft for startups. And, you know, like we are, for example, an example that we have walked all the line, no? So we started for Microsoft for startups, now being called Microsoft for founders. Then there is Fast Track. Then we went to be an ISV. We're in the marketplace. And ultimately, we got investment from Microsoft, no? And I can tell you from our experience that while it wasn't an easy journey, and the most difficult thing is to learn about all the acronyms that you guys have in Microsoft. You speak almost a different language.
That's been a job.
But once you get there, the machine that they have in the hands of a startup is priceless. But maybe walk us on that journey. How does a company like Mitiga or any deep tech company that can come from a spin-off can make that journey? What are the timelines? And, you know, what is your recommendation for them?
I would say not even Microsoft is a one-size-fits-all. Mm-hmm. I think every entrepreneur, every company out there needs to think what their value prop is and how does Microsoft really complement that value prop. And eventually, I would say even sometimes the value prop is as simple as, hey, I need a new distribution channel. I want to reduce my cost of sale, and I want to scale rapidly, and I cannot do it by myself. I might just, as I mentioned on the title, I want to stand on the shoulder of a giant and just scale faster. So I think it's crucial for companies not just to get excited about partnering with a big tech company, but really thinking, okay, what do I want to take from it? And where is the real value? Is it maybe on co-innovation? Is it maybe on accelerating product development? Is it maybe opening new key markets, getting access to industry experts? It really depends. Mm-hmm. But it's creating a little bit of a roadmap of what you want to accomplish. I think in your case, for example, you had people that were extremely excited about Mitiga as a solution itself from day one, and that helps, but not every, and you had like your own sponsors very high up in the organization from day one, but that's not the case normally. So it's important to really outline what you want, be very vocal about it. Hey, I just want Microsoft to help me on market growth. Okay, and what do you need in order for you to give me the key to that vehicle? And then again, just be very, very specific. A lot of companies, they just, again, get extremely excited about partnering with a hyperscaler for the sake of doing that. Mm-hmm. You need to really think about what's the value prop and what can you get in return and what can you give.
Yeah, and I think that's the last bit you said is very important. And as you mentioned, we were very fortunate to have the sponsor from day one. But also you need to find what's in for them. Right? So in our case, it was their agenda in sustainability. This is something that Microsoft has been betting a lot, and we were fitting in that shoe, no? And we were be able to provide our climate solutions within the framework of sustainability. So Microsoft had a reason, just beyond, you know, the philanthropy and the foundation and the programs and just giving back to the community and selling Azure credits from a supercomputing point of view. There is more to that, no? So you need to find what in the organization is actually moving and moving the needle. But let's stop it here and maybe open for a couple of questions for the audience, if you're happy with that. So who wants to take a chance and ask anything? I see a hand on the back left. Do we have a micro for the lady?
And also here.
Oh, micro is coming. Slowly.
Hello? Yes. Yeah. Okay. You've talked about corporates as well as startups or intrapreneur. You've both also worked in the US and Spain, and I'm an American in Spain. I was curious on some of your perceptions on the differences between the two in terms of kind of entrepreneurship, corporate culture.
Over to you.
I mean, when he actually invited me to speak at this event, and we were having a discussion about that, one of the things that I mentioned is that I would say Spain's biggest problem is its own mentality. Like, if you look at other ecosystems, and not that far away, you look at Portugal, you look at Ireland, even Estonia, those are extremely small countries. But the thing is, from day one, those entrepreneurs look outside. Their market is not local. Their market is the world. And that is what really sets the difference most of the times between what I see here in Spain and in the US. In the US, it's by itself one of the largest markets. A lot of companies now are looking at India as well, China at some point, but it's hard to get into that market. But succeeding locally is not the recipe for success. It can be, again, in the US for sure, but not in Spain. So that's probably the biggest difference I've seen. Again, how bold they are. And I've also advised and been on the investment board of different VCs. And when we look at companies, some of them, you look at their projections and they just want to conquer sometimes even a comunidad autónoma, I mean, a province, right? They don't even want to become the leader globally. So it's a matter of mentality. And in the US, from day one, entrepreneurs, they want to become global leaders. And that's I would say, for me, I mean, there are plenty of differences, of course. The entire ecosystem, you look at the Valley and their taxation system and employment law and everything, it's totally different. But I would say for me that, and the easiest thing to change, hopefully, it's mentality.
Yeah, I will agree. And I think there are good and bad things in both places, of course. But who are the best entrepreneurs? And now let's remove about deep tech, for a second. The best entrepreneurs are those ones that at some point they have struggled. We had more entrepreneurship with the economic crisis that we had than we ever seen before, no? So at the end of the day, those people that are expats, immigrants, those are the ones that they need to find their way no matter what. And they're like start a little business, they start a little connector, like a little group of people. So, and the US has been very characterized by that, no? Since the 50s. So you have people who goes in the US, seeking the big dream, being willing to do everything, trying to support their families in somewhere else. And the US has nurtured that, has opened the doors to people to think and do whatever they thought it was going to be, what it's going to take them out of the hole. Here, in a way, we have lived comfortable, so we have not been, so much pressed for certain things. So in a way, we didn't have the need to actually go to that level as a community, as a culture, no? So when it comes about mentalities, which is what Jaime is saying, is like it's not inbred into us, when maybe in the US, it's like inbred and nurture that way. But there is also the contrary side of things, no? So here, the same way that, we will struggle a lot to get to that point, it will be difficult for us to create the bubble that it has been created in the US, no? And then that bubble, when it bursts, it's difficult to handle, no? So I'm sure there is pros and cons, but if I have to take on one side or another, I will take the American mentality in terms of entrepreneurship any day. We can learn a lot,
Hello. I wanted to ask about the differences in the skills that you think that are necessary to be successful as an entrepreneur and as an entrepreneur. They are the same, or for example, for an entrepreneur you need risk aversion, no, compared with an entrepreneur, or maybe entrepreneur you need more politics because you are inside a big company, or you think that someone that is successful in one side, it will be successful also as an entrepreneur?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think at the end of the day, what you need is exactly the same. You need, again, good people skills, management skills. You need to know about tech. You need to know about many different things, both as an entrepreneur and as an intrapreneur. You need to be extremely agile and adaptable and resilient as well. But there is one thing that at least I learned and is very different, and is what you just mentioned. I'm not good at selling myself internally. And when you're a part of a big corporate, you need to do that. You need to continuously sell yourself, extend your network, meet people for coffees just for the sake of meeting people. And someone told me once I joined, like my net worth at Microsoft was going to be the worth of my network. Actually. And it's so true. So I would say that's the biggest difference: how to build yourself, your network, and your image inside a big corp. It's not the same as when you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I will agree. Skill-wise, very similar. Very different in terms of personality and what you want. No? So a lot of the entrepreneurs might not be willing to be intrapreneurs, just because maybe don't believe in certain things that are of large organizations. And on the other side, some intrapreneurs, they might not be willing to be entrepreneurs, just because they really drive by that need of growing. No, I've been in, and large organizations is the same thing than government. It becomes very competitive, and you need to have that hunger to actually grow. And there is every single ladder very well defined, and you need to want to drive that ladder. No, but in terms of skills, it's rocking the boat. You just need to be bold. Yeah. I think it's very similar for both.
And just one last thing I will add to that is patience. When you're part of a big corporate, you need to be patient. You're not allowed to be patient when you're an entrepreneur. You just snap and things happen. In a big corporate, you need to go from A to B. It can take weeks, if not months, sometimes. So you just need to time things and just be patient sometimes.
Question there? And then another one there.
Hi. Thank you both for sharing your experiences. I think failure is a big part of being an entrepreneur. Can you comment on how is that handled outside as an entrepreneur, inside as an entrepreneur, given the fact that as an entrepreneur, if you fail, you basically write off all your investment, time, and team that you've built. As an entrepreneur, is that any different? How do you handle that, Jaime, and maybe Alejandro too?
I'll go first.
No, as an entrepreneur first.
I don't know if there's, again, I really believe that failure doesn't exist. I just believe in learning. So that's how I see things. But it's true that there's not that much room for failure when you're part of a big company, because there are many resources invested into a specific, with the expectation of a specific outcome. And if you don't get to that specific outcome, I'm not going to say you're out, but eventually the entire organization might just disappear or might just be repurposed to another thing. I think you need to constantly, again, as I mentioned before, show traction, show tangible value, and be as specific about what you're doing as possible. But failure, you can make mistakes, but fail as an initiative, that's harder in a corporate world.
Yeah, for me, it's different if you ask me as Alex or if you ask me as the CEO of Mitiga. No? And it's very, very different because as a person, I have learned to kind of not conceive failure. If I fail, I'm just one step closer to figuring it out. No? So I will iterate one more time and I will get there. When you are heading at a group of people that, their families depend on them and, your failure can end up, with a bunch of people, having no job. In this summer, we just acquired another company that went in administration, and I did not realize the emotional impact on, there was 100+ people that there was without job, It really shocked me, This could be my team. So it's very different when it's a personal level, when it's as a CEO of a startup, regardless the size.
I think we're out of time.
I think we're good. But we'll take questions on the side. Thank you very much. And
thank you very much,
I'm
everyone.
totally going to pull a Taylor Swift. So come here. So social media, people need to think that we're cool. And just be funny.
This is improvised.
Just raise your hands or do something. You can make some noise as well. Here you go. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for that wonderful chat, Alejandro and Jaime, and for pulling that Taylor Swift that you said.